He was there, and then he wasn't. The bread was broken, their eyes opened, and gone. Luke, our gospel writer, doesn't explain it. There's no reason offered. We are simply told that their eyes were opened and that they recognized Jesus, and then he vanished from their sight. One moment, the stranger who had walked 7 miles with them, who had opened the scriptures to them, who had taken the bread and blessed it and broken it, and then nothing. Gone. As if he had never been there at all. It is a strange ending to a very strange story. And if we sit with it for a moment, before we go back to the beginning, I want to suggest that the vanishing of Jesus at that moment was not an accident. It was not an abandonment. Jesus actually left because leaving itself was the point. Because in the moment their eyes were finally opened, something had shifted deep in them that could not be unshifted. They had been changed. They had received what he came to give. And now that he's gone, the work that was his was now theirs. The presence that had walked beside them on the road would now walk inside of them in their hearts, into the world, into every stranger's face, into every table, into every door opened at the end of a long day. Jesus vanished because they themselves had become what they needed him to be. But to understand how this happened, we have to go back to the road. It was late on that day of the first Easter. 2 of Jesus' followers are walking from Jerusalem, away from Jerusalem. We don't know much about them. One of them is named Cleopas, the other is unnamed. Maybe it's Luke's way of including us in the story. They're heading to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles. 7 miles on a walking day is about half a day's journey. Long enough to think, long enough to talk, long enough to go over everything again and again and again, and still arrive nowhere. That's exactly what they're doing. Luke tells us that they were talking about everything that had happened, and the Greek word that he uses suggests something more than just a conversation. It's actually more like an examination. They're turning it over, trying to make it yield something meaningful that it just refused to give. And at the center of all of that turning and examining, one of them utters a sentence that might be one of the saddest sentences in all of Scripture. He says, "We had hoped." We had hoped. Not we hope, or not even we hope. We had hoped. It's past perfect tense, the grammar of a door that is already closed, the tense you use when something is not merely gone but absolutely finished, when the hoping itself belongs to another time, another version of your life, a version no longer in existence. We had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. They're not expressing doubt here. They're not even wrestling with faith. They are doing something quieter and more devastating than that. They're narrating the end of their world as they know it. We too know this tense, this past perfect. We have all spoken it, maybe not about Jesus, but maybe we've spoken it about God. Or about a version of God that we thought we had a grasp on. We had hoped God would work differently this time. We had hoped this marriage would hold. We had hoped this diagnosis would be different. We had hoped our child would find their way back. We had hoped the life we were building would turn out to be the life we were actually living. Whole communities speak this tense too. Just look at generations that come of age believing that the world is moving in one direction and then watch it shift into a totally different register. Look at generations who look at institutions and at causes and at movements that they give their whole life to, hoping against hope, and then feeling that hope shift into the past tense. When hope closes into past tense, something happens to us. We do what these two disciples do. We leave. Not always physically, though sometimes, but we turn away from the place where that hoping was happening. For these two disciples, Jerusalem had become that place. For them, it was and had become a city of a dead dream. We had hoped there. So they walk away. They walk away 7 miles toward anywhere else, toward a village that's small enough that nothing had really happened there yet, a half a day's journey away, a place where they might be able to put their burden down. We all have an Emmaus. We all have an Emmaus, a place that we walk toward when hope has closed, the distraction, or it's the routine, or it's the numbness, the scrolling, the busyness, anything that puts enough distance between us and Jerusalem so that we can at least breathe again. So they walked. They walked, and they walked, and they walked. And as they walked, a stranger fell into step beside them. He asks what they're talking about, this stranger. And they stop walking. Their faces fall flat. Cleopas says, with equal parts grief and dark comedy, "Are you the only stranger in all of Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened there in these days? Everyone knows. How could this man not know?" And Jesus, he says for his part, "What things?" He walks beside them. He listens. He lets them tell their whole story, and the words that they tell come out like a police report. It's facts, just the facts, confirmed and incontestable. Jesus of Nazareth, handed over, condemned, crucified. And the women who come back from the tomb with a story no one knows what to do with. Every fact laid on the table, nothing is missing, and yet, they don't know who they're talking to. We might explain their blindness simply. They were grieving, we might say. They were too devastated to see Jesus clearly, and that is true, as far as it goes. But something more radical, I believe, is happening on this road to Emmaus. The resurrection is not a larger version of what they already knew. No, the resurrection is a new creation that is breaking into the old one. The resurrection is a reality for which the old world has no category. There's no framework. There's no language adequate enough to describe or understand the fact of resurrection. They don't lack the evidence for it. What they lack is a concept that's big enough to hold what they're seeing. But they don't have it. They know with absolute certainty that people do not come back from the dead. But that's not ignorance. It's just true. It's just the world that they know. And grief, when it hardens, when grief hardens, when it's let to harden long enough, it locks us. It fixes us into a framework of the world that we're walking away from, a world that we have lost. Anything that doesn't fit that world, it gets screened out not because of stubbornness, but out of the profound human need to make sense of what has happened. The stranger walks beside them. He does not correct them or announce himself. He simply opens the scriptures, beginning with Moses and moving forward, showing them that the story they thought had ended was still going on. And that there was a framework large enough to hold what had happened if they were just willing to receive it. You can see their minds are just beginning to open ever so much on that walk. While their minds are beginning to open, their eyes are still closed, and they're almost at Emmaus now. They're nearly there when the stranger makes as if to continue walking down that road. The stranger wasn't going to stop. He would have walked on into the evening, into wherever that road took him next. The stranger was not going to impose himself on their grief, not impose himself on their home or impose himself on their table. And as he goes to walk away, they had to ask. They had to ask, and they did. Come in. Come in, they say. Stay with us. It's nearly evening and the day is almost over. Just stay. Their hearts were broken, these disciples. They were exhausted. They had spent 7 miles trying to make sense of something that refused to make sense. And at the end of all of that turning over, they simply extend an invitation. They open a door to a stranger. Grief has this tendency to pull us inward. Grief closes doors. And it has every reason to, because in grief, whatever kind of grief it is, we are depleted. We are raw. We have nothing left to give. And yet, in this moment, at the end of their journey, at this moment, something in these two men, some reflex deeper than devastation, reaches out. Come in. Stay with us. That opening, as small as it is, almost even an automatic gesture of hospitality, that opening is what brings them to the table. It's not their theological clarity. It's not their recovered faith or a better mood. It's just the door opened to a stranger at the end of a long and terrible week. And they walk in, and they sit down together, and he takes the bread. He blesses it. He breaks the bread open. It's the same hands, the same motion, the same words they had heard once before in another room, at another table, not so long ago. And